Am I involved in the Return to the Moon project that's now underway? I'm involved principally in being the chairman of the NASA Advisory Council, which is the primary council advising Administrator Michael Griffin on the implementation of national space policy, which of course includes the vision for space exploration, that in turn includes a return to the moon and ultimately preparing to go on to Mars. And so in that regard, I'm fairly deeply involved, spend a great deal of time as chairman of that advisory council.
I have a question. You gave a great talk, Jack, out in Bohemian Grove once about the value of man going to the moon. Do you remember that talk?
Well, I remember the Bohemian Grove.
Yeah, well, good. But do you remember what you said? You gave a great talk. You related it to, I forgot, the Queen Isabella and the value of that kind of exploration?
Space exploration has many of the attributes, in fact, very similar attributes to exploration of the Earth in the past. And if there is a good example, I think, of what Apollo relates to in the history, at least, of the United States, it would be the Lewis and Clark expedition. They really went out into unknown territory and took significant risks in doing so, much greater risks than the Apollo astronauts ever did, because Lewis and Clark didn't have anybody working for them back in mission control. They were totally on their own. We had thousands of people who had our best interests at heart and were watching our every move and every aspect and every change that might occur in our equipment. This was not the case, of course, with Lewis and Clark. There was another group of explorers that I think the next missions to the moon will resemble, and this was a group known as the Army Topographical Engineers. They went into the American West after Lewis and Clark, assigned to the Army expeditions that explored the West and particularly the Louisiana Purchase. These were young men that had been trained at West Point, primarily as surveyors as well as military officers, and were assigned to these various expeditions to survey the route, to act as explorers and collect samples, to make sketches, to observe and report back, eventually back to the scientists of the age, people like Humboldt in Europe as well as Agassiz and others in this country. And I think you're going to find that the return to the moon, that's part of the vision for space exploration, will produce individuals that will resemble this corps of engineers maybe more than what we saw with the initial Apollo missions and their resemblance to the Lewis and Clark expeditions that followed Jefferson's assignment to explore the Louisiana Purchase.